in Orange County. We are so grateful that we could join you today and share our plan for rolling out our distance learning. Our families have said that they feel connected and cared for, and their kids are happy. So we're so grateful for that and glad to be here to answer your questions.
So today we'll quickly review how we developed our emergency operating plan. Just review, again, we are all kind of in our level 1 implementation stage, but we do want to go over how we planned and prepared in advance. Then we'll go over our actual implementation of rolling out virtual learning and give a brief overview of what virtual learning is for us. Amber Rogers will talk about equity, access, and innovation and how we support our sites, our learners, and our families as an organization, what we're doing in terms of communication. And then, as Ellie said, we hope to have lots of time for question and answer and to be able to serve your needs. I think our enduring understanding for this presentation is that virtual learning and technology is just another tool for best practices of teaching and learning. Best practices of teaching and learning span time and how. And so we want to just reassure you that you probably already have all the knowledge, wisdom that you need to roll out according to what you do best. And we're just here to give you some tips and tricks of the how.
So we'll start with, you probably have seen this graphic over on the side, which is the level 3 prevention, level 2 preparedness, and level 1 response. And although I know we're already at level 1 and we're in the urgent immediate and how do we roll out this plan to our kids, I really want to go back and give you the overall thoughts of what we did in order to prepare for this. So in iLead, our D stands for design thinking. And as our co-founder, Dawn Evenson, said, the differentiator for us has been implementing a system with empathy and intention. So over a month ago, we began using design thinking, which starts with empathy, and focusing on our staff and learners and community and asking, how can we meet their needs? How can we provide differentiated, multi-tiered systems of support for both the learners and the staff? We knew that with change comes emotions that would need to be understood, cared for, and managed. And I think our team has done a really good job of doing this, and our people feel supported and are doing their very best to navigate this change. So looking at those over on this side, our key questions were, what model exists that best fits our needs? We are a project-based learning school, and our focus is social emotional learning. So with those two things, they're the cornerstone of who we are. So no matter what tool we use to teach our learners, this was not going to change. So ask yourself, what is your model? What do you need to hold on to that both your staff and students are familiar and comfortable with? What is your cornerstone? Next, we looked at who are the teams that needed to be involved. Technology, curriculum and instruction, outreach, leadership, operations. Who do you need to make your plan successful and have you engage them? Then, what are your strengths and existing resources? What do you already have that you can start using? What platforms are your teachers familiar with? We encouraged our facilitators to use our online platform of PowerSchool. It was what our online school was using. We were familiar with it, and we knew that we had curriculum that we could support them. However, we had other schools say, my teachers use Google Classroom. So we let them use Google Classroom. It was what they were familiar with. And we taught them how to, grow it. We had other schools that use Echo for 6th through 12th grade, and we allowed them to use what they're familiar with. Edmentum is something else that all of our schools are pretty familiar with. It's a great platform and meets kids where they are so we can keep them growing in those foundational skills. So what do you have already that you can use? From start to finish, what needs to happen and when and who is involved. So finally, we got to a timeline. So for us, this started about 4, 5, 6 weeks ago almost. We really started breaking it down and saying, oh my goodness, if we go this direction, do we have all these things in place? And our musts were focus on empathy, communication, stakeholder engagement, and doing what's best for kids. So this is when you get to the preparedness, that level 2. And really, it was 2 weeks before we closed down our school that we were at a level 2. And the big points to point out on this slide really were, how do we get our people engaged? How will we feed our kids? And how do we prepare for virtual learning? So 2 weeks before we closed our school, we made sure that we had trained all of our, we call them site directors, your principals, your staff. All of our site staff were given a video and were trained. And then we sent communication out to all stakeholders, including our parents and our learners, saying, hey, we're not there yet, but if we get there, here's the next steps. And in that communication to our families, we had a survey on the bottom, and it says, please click here if you don't have internet. And if they didn't have internet, they clicked it, and then we said, do you have any technology at home? So we were already creating in Google Forms a list of all of our students who would need technology or needed internet going forward. And this is preparing for the virtual learning. So what did it look like in that level 2 when we were preparing? Allison's going to talk more in depth about the preparation, but just general overview. Did we have our key players identified? We instantly created a help ticket system with IT's help. So we had a help ticket system for facilitators and a help ticket system for families. So if we went and we assigned key players so that as tickets came in, they could get instant feedback and it could get resolved. Number 3 was site office and IT coordinators ensured that all learners were uploaded in the learner management system. When we sent out that initial contact information, we also said to all of our families, is all of your emergency contact information updated in our system? If not, please do so. So we could update all of that. And so our learners were ready to go at a press of a button to get them all uploaded into our systems. Number 4 was the site directors worked with the coordinators to implement the site directors. So we did, if you click on that box, eventually we can send this out to you, but the site director phase 2, we gave them a script to read to their facilitators saying, we're not there yet, but if we get there, here's all the things. And then at the bottom of that, we attached a video, which was their training for their facilitators. At each site, we placed a professional development team, a person from the professional development team to, it's right there, Allison, down a little bit. Right there, training video link. And then and you don't have to click on it, but we placed a professional development team. So we had someone right there on site that they could ask questions immediately and answer anything they needed. In our Paycom, which is our HR system, we placed a quiz. So this was a way of keeping track of which facilitators had done the video and gone through the training and which hadn't. And then a who you're gonna call. And that's all the important people that you might need, the IT, the communications, all of those people that you could reach out to. And then as you can see, attached here for all of our directors was their actual survey results of what students needed internet and what students needed technology. You can go back. In addition to that, we gave them a checklist or a cheat sheet, I called it. And the cheat sheet is, it's just a closure. If you hit closure, these are all the things you have to work through. We then supported the virtual platform by making sure that we had a phone, the ticket system, emails. Oh, this was also for our calling the school. Like we created a chart and said, our schools are closed. Who are those phone calls going to go to during the school day from 8:30 to 4:30? So we had a list of, this is who they're gonna go to, this is where the emails go after, so that when parents called that they weren't just getting answering machines, but they were actually getting real people that could help them and they didn't feel disconnected from us. Site facilitators and support staff were all trained. That includes, we call them care team, you may call them instructional assistants. Everybody received training on what they would do and what their role would be. Every person in our organization has a place that they're working. If you're an instructional assistant, you're helping facilitators. You may be running a small group virtually, so everybody has a role. And then in addition to that, Amber will talk more, but our special ed staff was trained for 2 full days on how to take everything on virtually. So this leads us to the level 1 closure. And all stakeholders were notified and we executed the plan. All students were pushed into the virtual platform. Everything for us was up and running by Monday. So our notice of school closure went out on Friday to our families, to our staff, and I feel like because we let them know it was coming, that they were ready and prepared. And by Monday, all of our students were in an orientation. Our food and technology was being handed out at all sites. And by Tuesday, all of our students were actually in classes and learning, and we were able to connect and check in with all of our iLead family.
So what does our virtual planning learning plan look like for K-5? So as Amanda mentioned earlier, each site that we work with implemented this slightly differently according to their strengths and what their facilitators felt best for their families. But at minimum, all of our learners have three components or three options for virtual learning. The first component is synchronous learning. This is live. We use Zoom just like we are now, although the collaborative version, not the webinar version, for our live learning. And this is where we implement our SEL, our social emotional learning. We are encouraging play through these live Zoom meetings and community building. Our specials teachers pop into Zoom meetings to give mindful minutes, art lessons, quick music, stop, drop, and dances, or make music with whatever you have. Here's where we're addressing the Maslow's hierarchy of needs to create continuity for our learners who have had their day-to-day routines completely upended. So this is the time for each facilitator to check in with their community of learners and to really make sure that everybody's doing okay, on track, and learning. We want to make sure that the amount of time on Zoom is appropriate to the age of the learner. We really want to make sure with all of these components that learners are not sitting in front of a laptop for 5 or 6 hours a day. That doesn't align with our philosophy and what we feel to be true about how learning takes place. So some of these Zoom videos or Zoom check-ins are very short. They can be 15 to 20 minutes as a morning meeting. And then that's kind of it for the day. As our learners advance in age, they might get a little bit longer, or they might be offered a little bit more frequently depending on the needs of that individual class. Our facilitators are also offering open office hours, or collabs as we call them in our organization. And this is open time for families to join in a Zoom and get help on homework or assigned work. It's not really homework anymore, or it's all homework depending on how you look at it, and just to connect in or check in. And our care team members and student support are also using Zoom for small group instruction, for individual pullout, and to provide services, which I'll let Amber talk about in a minute. So we're using synchronous learning quite often, but in a very organized way. We're really trying to be mindful that a lot of our families have multiple learners enrolled in our schools, and possibly just one phone to log on to Zoom or one device at home. So we're really trying to make sure that this is accessible for parents and caregivers who don't have all day to devote to a traditional learning schedule. The second component of our virtual learning plan is the asynchronous learning, and this is the independent study piece that learners do on a learning management platform. As Amanda said, we were lucky to have iLead Online, which is one of our schools and is completely virtual, provide training, infrastructure, support, and curriculum for our asynchronous learning. So all of our facilitators were given project-inspired, already ready to go curriculum that has been developed over the course of the past 6 years to reflect authentic learning in an online setting. We wanted to keep things very simple. Again, being mindful that for some families, even just doing fundamentals every day was a lot and overwhelming. So at minimum, all of our facilitators and learners were placed in some sort of English language arts and math course. And then all of our facilitators were given an advisory course. And this was like a really cool sandbox that had all of the tools needed for facilitators to build out advisory, which is one of our key components when we learn on site. Our courses are interactive and active. We want to make sure that, again, learners aren't sitting online all day. They might come in, check in, get instructions, and then go do it in their home, either on paper or with their hands or materials they have around their house, and then come back to share and reflect on the learning through the virtual learning platform. For especially our K-1-2, we wanted to make sure that this asynchronous piece was caregiver oriented. It would be very difficult for a kindergartner unless it was a kindergarten specific app, which is part of our plan through Edmentum. But through PowerSchool or a learning management system like Google Classroom, it would be very difficult to expect a kindergartner to do that on their own. So we really wanted to give caregivers the opportunity to log in and then provide the support needed to their learners at home. And this is where the blooms happen. So again, we wanted to make sure that in our plan, the academics were being taken care of through a project-based lens, and that the social emotional was being taken care of as well. Equity and access was incredibly important to us, and through that technology survey, I feel like most of our families were able to access internet at home and have a device checked out. However, we did provide project-based packets of learning based on the online curriculum if families specifically requested it, or we knew that there was going to be a barrier to logging into synchronous and or asynchronous learning. So we provided those during our grab and go lunch pickup in Ballet Line and our technology pickup, and we'll continue to do so for as long as needed. So there is a pretty rapid shift of what in the classroom learning and online learning looks like. Yes, we are using best practices of teaching and learning, but it can be slightly different even for those facilitators who are experts in flipped classrooms and uploading content to a learning management system. They still don't have the day-to-day interaction in a face-to-face setting to rely on to supplement or enhance that online content. So we made sure that all of our facilitators have been trained and are receiving ongoing support in the difference between facilitating and teaching. And this is already a core value at iLead, but it changes even more in an online setting. So we didn't want facilitators as well as learners sitting in front of a laptop for 6 and 7 hours a day teaching the content. We wanted to make sure that they were spending their time facilitating the learning and making sure that the growth was happening on an individual basis for each learner. So our question became, how do we design content so that learners can own their own experience or navigate through it themselves? We also asked, what is essential for children to gain? We know that this is not a perfect transition to virtual learning and that we're in a very unprecedented time and that learners may be experiencing things far greater than our academic expectations. So we, again, really made sure we thought about what is it that children need to understand and remember 5 years from now about this time. And for us, that was social emotional learning and the basic fundamentals to continue to be lifelong learners and have those tools and skills. In an online learning setting, less is often more. At iLead Online, the focus of curriculum is quality of curriculum and activities versus quantity, particularly what we're expecting learners to turn in. So we don't expect a lot of the formative assessments or checks for understanding to come back in through an inbox. We want to offer that, of course, as a way to support learners, but those formative checks for understanding happen more in the synchronous Zoom classroom than they do in the asynchronous lesson planning or the learning management system. It's very important to be concrete. I don't know if you're all familiar with that English lesson that you do where the teacher pretends that they're an alien from outer space. They have all the materials they need to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the kids have to walk them through step by step, right? And the goal of that lesson is to be very specific and like, open the bread with the twist tie and open it slowly versus ripping the bread bag apart. It's the same concept for online learning. You have to break everything down in very chunked, easy to digest steps so that learners know exactly what step 1, step 2, and step 3 is, and that they have the tools to be able to do that. You can't just tell an online learner to take notes. You have to tell them what to take notes on, how to take those notes, and whether or not they're going to be using those notes for something else in the future. So the learning becomes broken down in a much more concrete way. Again, please take advantage of the resources and strengths that you already have. Traditional assessments don't work. We all know that plagiarism is really easy to do today, so I don't feel like I need to explain why traditional assessments don't work. We have to get creative about how we check for understanding and mastery. As Amanda said, communication is incredibly important, and we want to highlight that the strength of learning online and being an online facilitator is that personalization and individual support for each learner becomes much easier. So here's a sample weekly agenda, just so you can see from one of our 6th grade online classes in Power School. This is an extra project focused on journalism. We have a sample Monday through Friday. We always preface in our course homepages that this is just an example, and that parents and learners might think about how they learn in a class differently. Maybe they want to spend all of Monday just doing this class, and that's okay too. We don't require due dates or deadlines, and we would never penalize a learner for turning something in late. But we do, again, want to give them a comprehensive way to understand and master a concept. In terms of the facilitators, that mind shift is evident too in the facilitators. They might not work in a traditional 8 to 3 schedule, especially those of us who all have little kids at home that they're trying to do homeschool as well. And so maybe checking emails happens a little bit earlier in the morning or later at night, and that's okay. What our facilitators are beholden to is those live meetings and those live office hours, and how they spend their day is really up to them. And we're trying to be as empathetic and sensitive as possible, that our facilitators are also dealing with unprecedented circumstances. So I'll give it over to Amber to talk about equity, access, and innovation.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. So at iLead, we were very fortunate and blessed that half of our program for special education was on a virtual platform. And so it was a really smooth transition to be able to transition everything over to that virtual platform for our team and our learners. We did recognize that our kiddos who were on site, their whole world has been upended, and for students that have special needs, that's really challenging for them. And so we wanted to, and it was important to make this transition as smooth as possible for them. And so as Amanda mentioned, what we did was we had a 2-day training for our student support staff, which is our special education team, to just kind of go through how to implement everything in the virtual platform. So that accounted for specialized academic instruction, speech, occupational therapy, all of those different services that our students access every day on site. And so everybody on site was partnered up with each person was partnered up with one person from our virtual home study team to help them navigate this new virtual world that they all stepped into. And they were all placed on support teams after that. Then we started connecting that same day with all of our families, each case manager. So every education specialist reached out to the families on their caseload with personal phone calls and to let them know that they would be scheduling virtual service sessions this week or that week that we did the training to set them up on a virtual platform. And then we also connected with our non-public agencies that we partner with to provide outside services like occupational therapy, and some of our kids are on speech through non-public agencies as well. And so we connected with them to see if it was written in their MPA that they could provide virtual services. And if it wasn't, then we put them with companies that we had contracted with that could provide virtual services. So we got all of those services set up for our families, and that was really important to us that we got that set up as soon as possible, because we know that they need those services to access their education, and we didn't want them going without those for too long. Then our assessment team worked on drafting up prior written notice to inform all of our families that were in the assessment process that assessments would be on hold for right now. And so we are looking at some virtual assessment tools so that we can go ahead and start moving forward again with those assessments. But for right now, all of our families that were in that process that had triennials or initial assessments, we went ahead and notified them through a prior written notice and a personal connection that that assessment piece was on hold for the moment. If any of our kids were in initial assessments, we did go ahead and have someone reach out to them so that we could provide some supports, because obviously they're in that initial assessment process for a reason. So we did not want to leave them without resources for a long period of time, because we don't know obviously how long this is going to go. And we also offered webinars for our parents and for our staff. The webinars that we offered and continue to offer for our parents are on including and encouraging involvement and engagement in the virtual platform. So a lot of our kids that are in person, they're in person because they want to be in person and they've chosen to be in person, and that's important to them to have their learning in person. So this is hard for them to transition to this virtual platform and get their services online. So we've provided some webinars that are being held by our BCBA and one of our SLPAs that's really passionate about connecting with families to get them involved in the virtual platform. So we are offering those for families, and we've also held some webinars to just have a question and answer for our families, because this is such a tricky time for them navigating having their kids with special needs at home and how to meet their needs at home all day, and that's really challenging. We recognize that, and we want to be there to support them. We've also offered the webinars for our staff that has transitioned from being on site, and a lot of them had never used Zoom or different virtual platforms, and so we've been offering webinars for them to really familiarize themselves with the virtual platform and how to use the tools on Zoom and how to make their lessons interactive and engaging. And our team that has been providing services virtually has done a really good job of putting together a curriculum library that's online for virtual resources and engaging activities for students to do in their sessions. We've also provided our families a list of free resources that they can access while they're home with their kiddos that have special needs. So that can help with those days, because some of those days are really long for our families at home, and just trying to help them navigate all of this. And so that's all I have for our special education. Thank you.
And I'll just briefly touch on some of the other equity access areas that have come up. So with our foster and homeless youth, we have a fairly large population at one of our sites, and there's been foster where they're with a grandparent, and therefore they do not want technology, they don't have access to technology, and even if we give it to them, they're like, we don't know how to use it. So in our homeless, we have students that are living in homeless shelters that, again, did not want the technology, and even when we were willing to provide hotspots, they too wanted a packet-based system. So we were able to do that, but staying true to our project-based learning and SEL and finding ways for them to connect. So they are picking up those packets on a bi-weekly basis. They come every other week and they collect it and turn it in, and but trying to connect with them via phone. So we've even have care team who is assigned to different facilitators rosters that they call, and we make connection with our kids, somebody from our staff, once a week. How are you doing, and what can I do for you? Our English language learners, in addition to all of our stuff being in their home language, we also have been holding parent meetings. We held a parent meeting is coming up for one of our sites for just Spanish-speaking parents. We are all craving connection. And so even doing this right now, it's really hard because I can't see faces. And so all of us, we pull up Zoom. It's like a big Brady Bunch. And we all talk to each other and share with each other and connect with each other, because the parents need it, the students need it, and the staff need it. And us as leaders need that connection as well. Disengaged learners, we're doing everything we can to keep them engaged. So if they check in for a yoga class, or they check in for art, or we even have teachers hosting cooking on Fridays, anything we can do to get those students engaged, we're reaching out to them and personally connecting with them, because we want to see them and we want to know they're not lost, that we want them to be part of our community. And then working parents, we produce schedules for working parents. I have 4 little ones, and now I'm working at home more than I've ever worked. And it's hard. And so we've created schedules for what it might look like if you're a working parent and you have students that have to do this homeschooling on their own. So we really have thought through all of our different areas and how we can provide access to curriculum for all students. And this is our key to success. This is probably my favorite graphic, and I really think of it as 3 concentric circles, but it starts with our leadership support. And so what we've done is we put things in place. Last week, every single day, we did a check-in with our directors or our principals of our school. So we did collabs every day, same time. And we asked them, how are you? Are you okay? Is there anything that you need? Then we asked them about how's it going moving to online? Is there anything your facilitators need? How can we check on you? Anything we could do to support them, we spent an hour, and if they needed more, we spent more, but every day. And what happened was, in turn, those principals, directors went back to their sites. They did that every single day with their staff, their care team, their facilitators, and checked in. How are you? We saw some check-ins with hats on and different things, and they were being silly, but we need humor right now to get through this together. And then in turn, the facilitators checked in with their students every day. So it really is modeling for everyone of what it looks like. Cameras on, connection, and interacting. Switching to online is a mental shift. So we want to show them how to do this, and providing as much training and support as we can so that we're mirroring what the learners are experiencing. And finally, communication. And I'm finding that as much as at first I was feeling like, oh my goodness, are we overly communicating? We're not. More communication makes parents feel connected. It makes everyone feel connected. So as we rolled out this plan, we had, Allison did a beautiful job doing video trainings for parents. We did setting up the environment. So now that your kids are homeschooling, what should it look like at your house? You have ideas. So how do you set it up? Schedules. Like I said, we produced 5 different types of schedules. If you want to do project-based learning, here's what it can look like. If you want to do subject-based, here's what it could look like. If you're a working mommy, here's what it looks like, or daddy. And then we did resources. What are the resources that your kids are using every day? What are additional free resources that they can access? And Love and Logic and 7 Habits are part of our core. So how can you implement them at home? So we put out resources and tips for parents every day so that they have something that they can use. In addition, we have a wonderful team that hosts a radio show every week. And so yesterday we had Dr. Angie on, and Amber Raskin and Matt, and they did a great show for parents and how to improve or how to do things at home, like turning on the TV. Turning on the TV is okay right now, but can you put on the one that shows the words, right? The subtitles that shows the words so kids are seeing the words with and reading it. I know my kid yesterday, we were out of work and I couldn't do anything, so we watched in Spanish all day yesterday. So that's what happens, just fun ways to continue to let them learn. And so our radio show said some of those things. Facebook, every time we put a tip out, we put it on Facebook so parents have easy access to all of those things. All of those tips are on the home pages of our schools, again, so they have easy access and parents can get to anything they need quick and easily. And then last, this team has done an outstanding job. We've just started putting it together, but it's getting there. We started a web page for parents, for teachers, for anyone, with all of our information and resources on it to make it easy for you. And that's homeschoolinganswers.com. And this is our information, and we're here to support and help. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you for being there and supporting kids.
Thank you so much, Amanda. This has been incredibly informative, and we just really appreciate you jumping in to share, and your whole team. I'm wondering if now we can shift over to the Q&A. I'm sure there must be some questions from the audience. If you guys have questions, just type them into the Q&A or into the chat, or if you raise your hand, we'll take you off mute if you'd like to speak. Or maybe it's a Friday afternoon and everyone's exhausted. Oh, we have one hand up from Dolly, so I'm just going to allow you to talk. You should be able to speak now. Dolly, if you want to unmute yourself in the bottom left corner, you should be able to ask your question.
Got it.
There we
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I appreciate using the resources that you have. And I have Google Classroom, for example, available to, but it's new to me. Actually, we are a Waldorf-inspired school. So I am wondering if there is ideas how to learn things quicker, or do we just like using Zoom where we can kind of just live through it with our students?
I think, can I take this one, team?
Yes.
Okay, because my son's in a Waldorf preschool, and so I always loved my Waldorf people. And I think what you said, the second one, the showing vulnerability, and it's okay to not know everything and to model what it looks like for your children to make a hard transition and to mess up. I think that's lovely. I think you could probably engage your families to help support you, who's really tech savvy and can support us. And yes, there are lots of wonderful tutorials and trainings and models that exist out there. So going back to kind of our design thinking question, what's already out there that kind of feels right for us that we can look at and be inspired by? But yes, use Google Classroom, and yes, use, a lot of preschools are doing just a YouTube channel or just live Facebook videos. So it's okay to start small and then build up to what your ideal might look like, and to just do a little bit. That's okay too.
Great, thank you for that question, Dolly. I'm now going to, Ariana has also raised a hand. I'm going to put you off mute and you can ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much for all this information. I think it's great that we have something to go off of. My question is, someone made reference to the learning where teachers would check in, kind of like a community building or just a time where they can check in with students as a group. And you said it really depends on the age group, so between 15 to 20 minutes. Do you all have maybe an estimate for each grade level, how much time or roughly around each time, or how much time and how often that you're doing that depending on the grade level?
Allison, do you want to go or you want me to go?
You got it, Amanda.
Okay, so Allison's our curriculum expert. So that is a foundation of who we are. So we do a morning meeting or advisory every day with our students.
Okay.
And it's usually 30 to 45 minutes is what it is for all of our grade levels.
Got it.
Again, you're going to gauge it for, so we took that same thing and we moved it onto the online platform because that's part of our social emotional learning. So our kids engage daily with their teacher and we block out a 30-minute time period. I can tell you some really cute ones I heard about this week. We had one school that the facilitator read them a book and talked about how they were feeling and those feelings. We had another one where a facilitator invited all the students to bring their pet to the circle for the day and talk about their pet and who they were. Another facilitator that had them stay in their pajamas. So there's all kinds of things they do, but just really addressing and connecting and making them feel a part of a community and family. So like I said, we block out 30 minutes, but sometimes if it goes shorter, it goes shorter. And if it needs a little longer, they stay on a little longer.
Okay. And so you're doing this daily since it's already part of your
Yes.
daily instruction. Okay. We do something very similar. I just wasn't sure. I guess the teacher would then have to kind of read the room per se, to make sure, you know, if it's 15 minutes and it's 15, if it can go
and
30, then okay.
There's no, like, we're not taking attendance of any kind. So
Right.
if kids want to leave because they are, it's okay too. But at least they know they have a safe place to go and they can connect if they want to.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I just want to tack on really quickly. That was wonderful, Amanda. On homeschoolinganswers.com, on our K-5 framework at the top, there's a really handy graphic about what the average concentration span by age ranges. So I think it depends when you're thinking about the length of a Zoom. Are you doing something like morning meeting that's more social emotional and highly engaging? And have your facilitators thought through how to engage them, right? Like with a pet party or a dance party. So again, you're taking your best practices of the classroom. They know about how long their children can sit and do one activity before they have to transition them to the other one. So you're just translating that. But typically, if you're doing a more academic type meeting, you need less time on a Zoom conference than you would in a classroom. It tends to draw out a little long if it's more academic and you're trying to do a 30-minute lesson over Zoom. And that's that mind shift to really, your synchronous meetings should be more about connection and then supporting the asynchronous learning with questions, answers, and follow-up.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a few more questions in the Q&A. Wendy's asking, were all your sites preloaded into technology for students? And also, then is it possible to have all of that set up before technology goes home?
So I guess two things. And when I answered her over on this side, I'll just say, so we had all of our students ready as far as like, and I don't know exactly, Allison, was it a CSV file or whatever, ready to be pushed out and uploaded into the learning platform. But as far as technology, we have technology at our site, and we have I don't know, we have a lot of technology, but we're not one-to-one on devices, and we're not, like, no one is assigned technology. So no. So what happened was we really, through those forms of saying, like, what do you have? What do you need? Is how we distributed technology. And before we even went on closure, we started giving them out to our kids and saying, we're going to practice. So go ahead and take this home and bring it back. And it was only for a couple of nights because it happened so quickly. But nobody had already had technology checked out to them.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's not really my question.
Okay.
What my question is in regards to, because all of our providers, we did our surveys just like you guys, and we know who has what, and we know who unfortunately is lacking internet and everything. But one of the other directors asked me, for the students with disabilities that are going to be getting these services, is the Zoom site that they're going on, are we already going to load that? And then so when they take their technology home, or they already have it, it's already in there? Because what she's afraid of is sending home a device that they have to download something and they might not get to the right site. So maybe it's that I'm not asking the question. I don't know, because I know that the Zoom is already approved for everything, but when you sent your home, your technology home, and it's for a student that's going to be receiving like speech and language or occupational therapy, the Zoom site that they were going to access was already ready to go on that device.
Wendy, all of our technology is web-based. So there's nothing.
Okay. And so the Zoom is web-based.
Yes. So there's nothing that can't.
There's nothing to download.
Yeah.
Amanda, Allison, you want me to jump in on this one really quick?
Yes.
For the special ed piece. Yeah, so what we do is every Friday we send out a Zoom link, because the Zoom links will change based on who the provider is. I think this is what you're asking. So if they have a speech session, then the Zoom link is actually going to be different than if they have a specialized academic instruction session.
Right.
Every Friday, their teacher sends a Zoom link and says, here's the link for our class on Monday at 8 a.m. Make sure you click this link to join. You can preload the Zoom app, but each meeting has a different link, if that's what you're
right. So it's still, yeah, I think that's what one of the other directors was worried about, is that the kids would have to be downloading. And so like the iPads that we're passing out, they're protected. So the kids can't add this or add that. So all of the things that they need. So I guess that's the thing. They have to be able to access the internet to get the Zoom. So we're going to have to like take off. They can't have everything blocked, or else how would they get the Zoom if it's web-based?
Right.
Yeah. That's what I was trying. I was trying to explain that to one of the other directors, that I don't think that you can have everything so blocked, because then how are they going to be able to, they're going to have to go to the internet. So
unless your IT team has a way of pushing out, and they can push out apps to all of your devices. I don't know how.
Yeah, okay. I think that's something, we work with Direct Ed and we work with Total Education Solutions. And I'm thinking that maybe they would be able to answer those questions, because they seem to have everything ready. They told me, don't worry, we have everything ready to go. But it was just that one of the other directors was worried about sending the devices home and then having the kids, have all these things that we have on their, this protected and that protected and this blocked, and then they wouldn't be able to get to where they needed to go. So, yeah. Okay, I'm sure that the service providers are probably experienced with that kind of stuff. And just to say that you guys are like amazing. I'm so jealous of how organized and how ready and everything you guys are. But that's really awesome, because we're Village Charter Academy, and we always say it takes a village, but you guys are a real example of what a village really looks like. So congratulations, that's really great.
Well, we're here to help and support, so don't be afraid to reach out.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
So last couple of questions here. Demi's asking, what was the address for the homeschooling website again? If we could maybe just type that into the chat. We're also going to be sending out a recording of the webinar and the slides, but we won't be able to get that out to you guys until tomorrow, just with the way that the technology works. So please bear with us there. Christopher's asking if you have any online referrals for consultants for professional development.
Christopher, are you asking for how to teach online for general ed or for special ed?
Christopher, if you take yourself off mute, there you go. If you're talking, Chris, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, that was actually me. I asked that question twice. This is Marietta Golden from Ames K-12 College Prep in Oakland. And I wanted to find out if you had any referrals for consultants that do online training for us that we could possibly look into to train our teachers.
This is Amber. I know that our team could potentially provide some PD. I don't know. I don't have anyone else that I could refer you to, but if you'd like to email me, we could set up some PD for your team.
Okay, can you, how would I get your email?
I can type it in the chat box.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And we also, through our Maker Learning Network, we provide consulting and PD too. So you're welcome to email both Amber, and this is Allison Bravo. We're happy to kind of talk to you about.
Oh, I'm looking at you. I'm sorry, I'm looking at your emails.
No problem. And if not us, we can probably partner with you on who might be able to help you out.
Yeah, just to add into that, CCSA is also planning to host a webinar on teacher PD, because we've heard from a number of schools that that's something that you guys would like. So within the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Thank you so much. I will send you an email. It's Friday, vacation starts Monday, and I am ready. And my Oprah voice, ready.
We have one more question from Celeste, which is, how do families not on the internet or with tech get their packets? Do you have a physical packet protocol, such as having to wait a day or 3 days before touching them? I guess this is to do with risk of contamination with COVID-19.
So we're handing out our packets with our food is what we're doing right now. So we have a valet system set up, and so those students, they've worked out they contact someone, they let them know they're coming, and so they basically drive up and we hand them the packet. And we're doing that every other week for those families that haven't. We have some families that live in very rural communities that do not have internet at all and can't get internet access, and so we had to put something in place, and that's what we've come up with.
Great, thank you.
And Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, our grab and go meal system, we do use protective equipment such as gloves, yep. Correct?
That's absolutely correct.
All right, I think that's all of the questions. I think most of them have either been answered live or they've been answered via the Q&A. So with that, I just want to say a huge thank you to the iLead team for jumping at the opportunity to share with us today, and at very late notice too. We really appreciate you guys and everything that you're doing for the charter school community. Like I said a moment ago, based on member surveys, we've heard that community engagement, supporting special education needs, creating online infrastructure, grading student work, and teacher professional development are some of the issues that are coming up for most leaders. So we just want to let you guys know that you should look out for more information coming from CCSA about upcoming webinars on these smaller topics. So thank you all very much for taking the time to attend the webinar today. When you exit, you'll be auto-directed to a very short 2-question survey. We'd really appreciate the feedback if you have the time to give it to us. And we hope that you all stay happy and healthy over this weekend and as long as this continues. So thanks again, iLead. I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you.